bud? Welcome back, everybody, to the Little Dicey Podcast. My name is Salvatore. This is Matthew. We are your co-hosts here. If you're not familiar with us, we talk about all things Dungeons and Dragons here on this podcast. We also have a live play weekly episodic show that we call the Great Nelidian Crown. You can find that on twitch.tv/ALittleDiceyDND, 6 p.m. Eastern Standard Time on Wednesday nights. But here on Saturday morning / immediate afternoon, we do a little podcast where Matt and I sit down and we talk about some fun new D&D stuff. Last episode, we talked about some of the new updated expert classes for 1D&D, all that playtest material. But for the past 13 or so odd episodes, we've been talking about each class in 5th edition Dungeons and Dragons and giving them a ranking based on essentially, how we feel the ratio between the fantasy of the class and the actual mechanics of the class, how that lines up and how each one of those things support each other, and giving an appropriate ranking. If the mechanics support the fantasy perfectly all around and you feel great playing it and it's powerful and it's all cool, then it's S tier, Yeah. And if it doesn't make any fucking sense, if the fantasy isn't supported at all, and even though the mechanics are still kind of cool and strong, like if it doesn't support the fantasy, then it's F tier and it's fucking stupid and dumb. And as you can see on the screen, our lovely tier maker here down in the middle, this is the current state of our 5th edition class conversation. And we can walk through our initial sort of rankings, which we've come to based on the past 13 or so episodes that we've talked about each of these classes individually. And we're gonna sort of sit down and just sort of do a little bit of a retrospective and give our final sort of ultimate rankings on the Dungeons and Dragons 5th edition classes, which are the best of the best and which are absolutely dog shit and need to either not exist or be totally reworked.
It'll be irrefutable.
Oh yeah, yeah, of course.
So if you're gonna at us now. What's up, Extra?
What up, baby?
What's going on?
Good to see you. We do this live, like I said, on Saturdays. So if you're catching this on YouTube, say hi, check us out. You can talk to us live, and we can have a better conversation about this as as we actually talk about it. But if you're catching this on YouTube, leave a little comment and tell us why we're totally wrong about this, and we will ignore you. And we'll go along being right.
You. We'll tell you that you're wrong.
Well, yeah. That's true. We'll refute you. There you go.
Yes.
All right. So Extra, real quick, we're swapped over to the tier maker sort of page right now, so we actually can't see the chat just off the top of my head. So just let us know in great, yeah. Will it stick though on the screen? You know what I mean? Pull it over to the side. Yeah, so I think it needs to be full screen in order to be on. Okay. Yeah. So Extra, let us know if you can see it right now. We'll click over to the chat in like a second, and then we'll readjust if we need to. So, and then if this is YouTube, we'll fucking Michaela will edit it. It'll be fine. So, Matt, why don't you walk us through right now if you guys can see a little bit better. We'll walk through which classes we've already ranked, and then we'll just sort of talk about them very quickly. Why we rank them. And then just pull them down into the space of the void and then re-rank them appropriately.
Oh, you want to do it that way?
Yeah, why not?
All right. Okay, so so in the S tier, we had the Druid and the Warlock. I think, honestly, because both provide something incredibly thematic built into the class. Druid being that they have... While it's not a completely unique spell list, it certainly feels like it's the Druid spell list and then other classes borrow a little bit from it, right? A few shared things with the Cleric and whatnot, but the spells are so thematic, so evocative. They get to leverage more ritual spells than a lot of other classes do. Having played Wizard, I was always like, why aren't there more ritual spells? And then the Warlock has the innate Warlock patron that kind of like solves all evils in a way in terms of flavor. Like no matter what happens on the battlefield, if you're DM, and of course it takes DM involvement, but like not in the way that some other things do, right? It's not a case of the DM fixing a problem. Right. It's that inherent in the class is this relationship with your patron that is unique and always gives your character something to guide you thematically. And so I think both of these are just always going to be fun to play, and both are, powerful enough, so those are our S tier classes. So you know what? I'm just gonna leave those where they are.
I'm not changing them.
Pretty good
I'm not
about
changing
those.
them. Well, actually, what I do want to do is, you know, if we want to cut this up and put it on YouTube, just like, oh, here's 5 minutes of you and I ranking these classes,
Yeah.
and it's just like, you know, out of context for like just the
Okay.
to pop views. I do want to have like 2 minutes of us just going, yep, Druid's S tier, Warlock's S tier, fucking blah blah blah, blah, you know, just bumping them. So bring them down. We all know, everyone here live knows that this is, you know, we're not changing that.
Yeah, so the way the Druid sucks.
Yeah, anyways, yeah.
That's below F tier, and Warlock 2.
Below F
play at
tier,
all.
yeah.
These are just into the void with you. Okay, on to A tier. So this is where I think a few of these are gonna have to move around a little bit.
Yeah. We will restructure.
So in the A tier, which basically means that it's not, for us, it's not as good as S tier. It's not these kind of shining examples of just like classes that are so fun to play thematically, but just like classes that we think do a good job.
Yeah.
You know, right? So that includes Wizard, Barbarian, the Artificer, the Sorcerer, the Rogue, and the Cleric. That stout Cleric.
Yeah, baby.
Yeah, you have anything specific you want to say about any of these, or?
Not yet. I don't think. I have a pretty good idea of what I want to keep A tier, and I have a pretty good idea of what I want to move down.
Yeah.
So, spoiler alert, not really going to be moving anything up. So,
yeah, nothing's going up.
Yeah.
Okay, in the B tier, these are classes that, you know, are functional, but we think, you know, and these two are missing different. These are actually like polar opposites, right? We have the Paladin, we have the Monk. The Paladin just being kind of weird sometimes,
yeah,
in the features that it gets and the way that they're explained or not explained, and the Monk just being like relatively thematic, but just being mechanically dog shit.
Yeah. It's sort of, well, that's why I think it might be good to start with the Monk when we sort of restructure it.
Sure.
Because I think it's just the perfect middle ground of like, hey, like the themes are there.
Yeah.
The mechanics are not good. Yeah. And it's just like, well, fuck, like you will feel like a monk, but like, are you going to really feel good playing the game?
Right.
You know what I mean? Yeah,
right. Yeah. So we'll start with the monk in a minute. And then the C tier, these are basically what I just said, but even a little bit worse. Either the mechanics are like fine, but the flavor is just really kind of like in the case of the Ranger, we kind of thought that the flavor, the thing that makes the Ranger unique, doesn't work in the game, and that's why they got rid of it.
Yeah.
And for the fighter, it's just that they didn't really put any flavor in the class. They told us what a fighter's supposed to be, and then they just basically made it as generic and open canvas as it possibly be. Yeah. Which, like, in a way, I think their goal was to make it approachable for new players because it's so uncomplicated, and yet it's actually one of the most complicated because it requires you to make so many good choices. Yeah, there's more choices with the fighter than any other, certainly with any other martial. You know, if you don't think about like spell selection, then I would say with anybody. Yeah, and then finally the F tier, the Bard stands alone, not because they're not powerful, but because they're just dumb wizards. Yep. Nothing about the Bard makes you feel it evokes Bard at all. There's no like creativity in the class built in. They don't use performance for anything. There's nothing, even if you don't relegate the Bard to just the musician, there aren't even any spells that really feel bardy, with the possible exception of like Vicious Mockery, and I think Dissonant Whispers is another one. Yeah. But there's no like, there's no like, I don't know, lullaby spell. Yeah, like, lullaby spell that like, I mean, there's sleep, of course, right? And you can always
but sleep that. Is not. Yeah.
But there's nothing like the Druid. The class itself doesn't have much actually. Right. Other than Wild Shape, which is great utility, but especially in the mid and the high tier play is really limited in what it's useful for. It's relying almost exclusively on its spell selections to be both powerful and thematic. The Bard has more useful features, and this is why it's inherently more powerful. Bardic Inspiration is a good feature, plus it gets all of the skill features as a part of being what they're not calling an expert class. But the spell list is so generic. It's so like whatever. I mean, they're trying to give you the utility spells, the healing spells, the this, the that, but just nothing about it feels like a Bard. You just feel like, honestly, a wizard who has like a wizard who can't blow things up but can fuck.
True.
That's
True.
basically what a bard is.
Which is like, well, we get why everybody wants to play it. Yeah, that makes sense. That makes
I get
sense.
it.
Yeah. Totally understand.
And there's lots of reasons to play a bard. The one reason not to play a bard is to feel like a bard. Right?
So true.
Yeah.
So true.
If you just want to be a utility wizard that fucks, play a bard, man.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
I feel that.
So anyway, that's kind of initially where we were. So we want to start with the monk.
Well, I want to start with the monk. Let's scramble it up a little bit.
Okay.
Just so like, you know, we don't just like go right back into.
I'm gonna do so well with this with my left hand.
Yeah, you got it. I believe in you.
Yeah, I'm gonna do me.
Yeah. Oh yeah, doing so well.
We're doing it.
Bring the monk all the way to the front. That way it feels normal. Oh yeah, nice.
Don't tell me what to do.
Okay. Do whatever you want.
Yeah.
Great.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. Wow.
Yeah.
The dexterity.
The dexterity. All right. Front of the line. Move over, fighter.
I think that's the back of the line. Oh no, you got it. Wow. The skill.
We're gonna do that way.
Sure. Sounds
This
good
is
to me.
the entrance with the velvet rope.
Oh, I love that.
The bouncer's like you're not on the fucking.
Yeah, I feel you.
All right.
All right, so this is the quintessential Dungeons and Dragons 5th edition tier list for the classes. S tier, top of the line, the best. I will not be spoken to about anything else. F tier, dog shit. And, you know, you can play it if you want, but if you really want to feel like the class that you're playing, stick with like a B plus, really.
Yeah. I think, and another way to look at it is like, for us, an F tier is a total rewrite.
It's a rewrite.
Right?
Yeah.
Start from the beginning, totally rewrite the class if you want the class to feel like what the class is supposed to feel like, we think. All the way to S tier, which oddly doesn't mean that these classes are perfect.
No.
Right? I would say that neither of those classes are perfect. It's just that
They're the best.
they are the most evocative,
Yeah.
the most, you know, whatever.
Yeah.
So yeah, and then everything in the middle.
Easy stuff.
Easy stuff.
So to begin with, we have the monk.
We have the monk.
And the monk is a perfect place to start, in my opinion, because I believe it represents the quintessential middle of the ground. The fantasy of the class is there. It's represented. Bunch of ribbon abilities that make you feel, you know, at least most of them make you feel like you're actually playing this class that, you know, you want to create. However, the mechanics of the class are not, they just are not good. They don't feel good to use. They don't really support you in the sense of like actually putting them to use in the game, whether it be in combat or out of. Your dungeon master kind of has to go out of their way to provide a space for you to shine and to get those moments. And while that is a good, you know, that is a quality of a good dungeon master, a good class should not be reliant on having a good dungeon master.
Yeah, I think the dungeon master has to go way out of their way to make the monk feel. The reason I think people pick monk is because they think monks are cool.
Fuck yeah, dude.
Because they like kung fu movies, they like, you know, anime, they like whatever. You play a monk because you want to feel cool. And the thing is, the first time you sit at the table and you get into combat, right, and you're like, oh yeah, you know, my monk goes and he does like a sweet like sweeping leg kick and then whatever, and you're describing the martial arts that you're using, which is just your attack action.
Right.
Like, you're gonna feel rad. Yeah. And then after like 2 or 3 fights, you're gonna be like, I attack.
You're gonna stop doing that.
This is the thing that kind of happens with characters, is at first they really want to hammer home that flavor that they've been building in their head, and then after a while it sort of does resort to the mechanics a bit. And so the monk's gonna stop being like, okay, I do a sweet backflip and then I whatever, and I, you know, and they're just gonna be like, yeah, I attack. Oh, I missed twice and then I did 2 damage on the last attack, you know, whatever.
Yeah.
I think that the level 1 monk features are very flavorful, but man, they get so little.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
They get so little.
They really do.
I certainly can't call them an F tier because I don't think it's a total rewrite. But
I don't think it's a total rewrite. I just think you just need to rebalance it. Yeah. Like if you just go through and rebalance the, you know, if you just focus a little bit more on like the actual oomph behind what you've already started as like a pretty solid, I think the monk has a great foundation. I think that they know what they want the class to be, at least what they've written in.
Yeah.
The problem is that they just have not delivered mechanically on like the actual gusto behind like the thing, like the actions you want to be taking.
Yeah, the monk as designed needs like another like 4 features.
Yeah, 100%.
Or you have to completely change the way that the key system works. I think the monk is as close to a total rewrite as anything that isn't the bard. To be honest, and I think we originally had it as a B.
You want to go C?
I think we got to go C with the monk.
I respect that.
Because the other thing is like, when we think about like archetypes, a lot of times of course you're relying on subclass to get that archetype or whatever, but like, man, I think even with the archetype, you're still just like, yo, I don't get anything exciting in my like, you're getting things like extra movement, you're getting things like I don't get older. Right.
Cool.
And like extra movement is fine if you're good at something.
Extra movement is just better on a rogue. You just do it better as a rogue. You stop aging as a druid. Yeah. Like, you know what I mean?
Yeah,
like
I just think I think the other thing is like inherently the vision that you're gonna have when you pick monk is gonna be like, if you're like, I'm a fighter. Okay, cool, I'm a fighter. Or like, yeah, I'm gonna be like a cleric. Okay, cool, I'm a cleric. But when you pick monk, I feel like your expectations for badassery are through the roof.
Yeah, 100%.
And so I almost need to judge monk even harder than the other classes because the flavor you're expecting is so evocative. And then you get to the table and you're like, yeah, I throw 3 punches at level 1, and the DM's like, okay, you did 4 total damage. Good job. You know, I think the monk is a sad boy, and it's a sad thing for all of us.
Rest in peace to the monk.
Rest in peace to the monk.
Well, you know what? The monk sits idly at C. We will see. Nice. Who sits above or below it.
And there's some hope with 1D&D. One interesting thing that they've done, if you've paid any attention to the Unearthed Arcana, of course, it's all relative. You know, what do they say? Subject to change.
Yeah.
But one thing that they're doing that's kind of interesting is they're making unarmed strikes grappling and shoving instead of being contested strength checks.
Yeah.
They're making them a thing that you can do instead of doing damage when you hit with an unarmed strike.
That's great.
So what'll be interesting is I don't know if when I think of what monks do, I picture them doing a lot of shoving and grappling. So it's a little weird, but mechanically it gives them an interesting identity where if monks become really good at those things inherently and kind of for free, that is at least a feature that makes them unique. And so now if you start thinking about, well, maybe I'm not like a kung fu monk, but I'm kind of like a wrestler monk.
Or like a jujitsu.
Yeah, I'm like a luchador, right? Like all of a sudden you're like, oh, that's pretty rad. Like I'm playing Rey Mysterio.
Yeah, it's so cool.
You know what I mean? So it gives me hope. Now, I don't think that was on purpose, by the way. I think that was...
They stumbled into it.
I think that was completely an accident. I have a feeling they're trying to get rid of contested checks in general.
Which kind of makes sense because those are extraordinarily confusing on like when they happen. They're also very rare. It's,
So some hope for the monk, I think, but for today...
C tier.
C tier. Next is the fighter.
The fighter.
The fighter, I don't think is a weak class. I think there's a lot of fun that can be had with the fighter, but... the big things that, and you originally had them as A, and I originally had them as C, and the thing that I brought to the table is their features are so generic and don't really evoke any flavor, and most of all, they don't evoke the thing that the fighter proclaims itself to be, which is skilled, which has an incredible breadth and depth of skill with weapon combat. And the way that they represent that is that once they're level 11, they can attack one more time
than anybody else.
Than the other 7-8 classes that get extra attack.
Right.
And that's it.
It is. With the exception of by the time they also are level 11, they will have access to... I'm trying to think. 1, 2, 3. They'll have access to... two
extra feats
or ability score improvements than anybody else. But the problem, so that's where my conflict lies, is that hypothetically, if you had someone that really knew what they were doing, were really in tune with the mechanics of the game, the features, and what they wanted to build in the character, hypothetically, you could create a fantasy within these parameters that only the fighter allows you so far. to create a fantasy based on the mechanics that you're given. However,
Yeah, if your vision is, I need 6 feats to make this happen.
right, so that's that's inherently the class is not that doesn't help a class.
Right.
However, my conflict is like, yeah, but you can like hypothetically, you know, the monk can't do that. You know what I mean? Does that make sense? Like you like the fighter has the capacity to be, you know, to match the fantasy of whatever you, not whatever, but like of many things that you might want your fighter to be, but they're so reliant on a completely unbalanced and like neglected part of the game that it's just kind of like, well, why isn't the class just better? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So it's like this weird thing where it's like, well, in my eyes, I'm like, well, I don't think that the class is worse than the monk. You know what I mean? So it's just like, I don't know. To me, but again, going back to it, it's like, well, in my opinion, then, like, the class needs an entire rewrite. Like, you need to reestablish what it actually is to be a fighter.
The problem is that Action Surge is very powerful and is the reason a lot of optimized builds multi-class fighter for 2 levels. Like, if you have a level 17 wizard, right?
There's no reason to be a level 20 wizard at all.
I'm going to take 2 levels of fighter so that I can cast 2 leveled spells in a round.
It's amazing.
Right? It's amazing. The thing is, it's the most boring on a fighter, and it's also, like, if once you're level 11 or level 20, being able to make 6 or 8 attacks, technically 7 or 10 or 9 attacks in a round, is undoubtedly good. But it's so boring. And it still is like, they just have no actions that they would use other than attack.
Yeah.
So the fact that Action Surge says you get another action is just like, it just seems like a waste on a class that all they do is attack. And it gets like its primary use is like multi-classing into it and you know, whatever. So like if it were me, I would definitely, a simple solution is you get rid of Action Surge and you give every fighter Battle Master maneuvers. And
it makes so much sense.
That kind of fixes everything. And the fact that I think that's all it would take to fix the fighter means that maybe C tier is a little, I don't know, maybe it's a little rough. And yet, just because it's an easy fix doesn't mean it's like, it's good the way it is.
Sure.
So I don't know. I'm on the fence.
We can be fluid as we're moving through this.
Right.
Like, I don't mind putting here's the thing.
Here's what I'm going to say. I'm going to say, let's put them C tier above the monk for now.
Yes, I do not think they're worse than the monk.
There are going to be a lot of A's that are going to move down to B.
Oh yeah.
So, yes, we're gonna do it like that. And by the way, I've had a blast playing a fighter in a one shot, level 20 fighter in a one shot. But you know what I'll say also? I was struggling to spend those feats.
Sure.
You
Sure.
know?
Once you get to the once you get past like the 4 feats that really you need. Yeah. After that, you're like, well, what else? You know what I mean? Like, I want to just, like, who cares?
Yeah, the level 6 feat and the level 10 feat. Is it 6 and 10, the extra ones that they get? Because Rogue gets an extra one, too, and it's a different level.
Yeah, it's 6 and, well, it's every 2.
Yeah.
Their extras are every 2 levels.
Yeah, so it's 4, 6, 8, 10, 12. Yeah. Yeah, so the level 6 feat is gonna really help. A lot of level 6 features kind of blow. That level 6 feat is going to be great. You're not going to be mad at the level 10 feat. And then, you know.
Beyond that, it's like, okay.
Yeah.
My dex is maxed. My con is maxed.
Well,
my
your concept is going to be probably complete by then.
Yeah.
Like all those builds that were like, I need Polearm Master, Great Weapon Master, and Sentinel to make this work.
Right.
Like, it's great that you get to go like Variant Human, and then level 6, your concept is done. Yeah. Right. That's really nice that you get to complete that trifecta. A lot of marshals want those 3 combat feats. Right. You know, or sharpshooter, crossbow expert. Right. You know, blah blah blah. That's really powerful. That's really nice. But like other than that, I just think there's so many. Battle Master Maneuvers is the most obvious, but there's so many ways, we talked about this on the fighter a lot, to evoke a greater depth and breadth of skill with a weapon on the battlefield than just attack one more time when you're already one of the most legendary adventurers on the continent at level 11.
Yeah.
Right?
Yes. Yeah. That is what Wizards of the Coast is written into the DMs and guide in the player's handbook.
Like, why does anyone give a fuck about you at level 10?
It doesn't. You know what I mean? For real.
Right.
For real.
Anyway.
Whack. Okay, yeah. So cool. above monk, but yes.
Okay. So next is the druid.
Druid. I don't even want to explain anything.
Yeah.
S tier. Druid's the best.
S tier.
Druid is S tier. There's just fucking. If you think differently, read the class, dude.
Yeah.
Read the fucking class.
Yeah. It's a little.
Then read all the other ones and go, oh, why isn't every class just like this?
Yeah. The big lesson, if we're talking about like retrospective, the lesson, I think, is that unique and thematic spell lists for a spellcaster, make a class.
100,000%.
The druid has it. There's 10 off the top of my head that I could spells that I could rattle off that make druids feel like druids.
Yep.
It's like 1.5 for bard.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
And we talk about a total rewrite for bard, but if bards had a spell list that felt bardic like druids have a spell list that feels druidic, that would also be a way to solve the
That would be a very, very fast way without having to restructure the class to be, oh, this is now something that I actually feel like I'm a bard.
Yeah, give me 6 more unique bard spells.
Yeah.
And all of a sudden, they probably shoot right up to, B or A at least.
Yeah, 100%. Especially if they just feel really good to cast throughout the levels that you're making them, right? Like, I mean, if you do six spells that are like, level 5 through 9 or whatever, then I'm like, well,
yeah,
I don't give a fuck, you know what I mean? But if you structure those from level 1 to level, if you give me 9 new spells, level 1 through level 9, and 6 of those, like, just perfect, you know what I mean? Like, just one a level, just have like a specific bard spell, no one else can take it, and then that's it. Like, honestly, that fixes the class for me. I'm a
little surprised there were no new spells that I think in the spell list presented in the UA.
I feel like they're waiting to do that.
It could be, and I know that they have completely changed some of them already.
Yeah,
that Barkskin spell is a totally new.
Totally different. Yeah.
So there might be new spells without there being new spells. Anyway, the cleric is next, right? Is that a cleric? No, that's a
paladin.
That's a paladin.
That's paladin. Yeah.
Paladin is next. We had them at B tier, I believe.
We did.
I
honestly think having them at a high B tier is fine.
I think that's true.
Yeah.
There's some things that you and I nitpicked a lot and bug the shit out of us with the paladin, and yet most people are going to be like, yo, I'm a fully armored fighter that gets to smite things.
It's ill.
And the smiting itself it's not my play style, but for people that want to play a paladin,
they're going to play a paladin.
The smiting is going to be very satisfying.
Yeah. And the innate...
they've definitely been a little bit nerfed.
They've been nerfed through 1D&D, but I just believe in general hopefully with the philosophy that they're trying to go with 1D&D, in that just, kind of, I don't want to say nerfing everything across the board, but just sort of making, the damage output a little bit more streamlined, a little bit more, like, less super fucking high rolly on like a random class or whatever situation. I personally, as a dungeon master, like that. It helps me balance encounters way easier. I honestly think that
a nerf is okay as long as other things are appropriately buffed and nerfed. Right?
Exactly, 100%.
See what spells look like. The spells are just as good as they used to be, and they're just nerfing marshals.
Then that's a problem.
They're nerfing the rogue, they're nerfing the paladin, and then all of a sudden you're like, bro, what are you
doing? Why are you doing this?
If the spells also get weaker, a lot of people are going to be like, oh, this sucks. But like holistically,
if you play the game, it will feel fine. Right? It'll feel better.
And in theory, what else they'll do is they'll adjust the monsters as well.
Yeah.
Or maybe the CR system will actually work.
Or if they nerf everything and actually it's like, oh shit, suddenly all the monsters make sense.
A decent challenge against the level 4
That's so funny.
Yeah, I think that's a good spot for them. Okay, Wizard. So Wizard we had at A. I continue to think that Wizard is in my head, the Wizard is so generic that it's like I feel like it's missing something. I know that you love a Wizard.
I do.
And I think that we're gonna have a lot of A's. We had a lot of A's.
We had a lot of A's, yes.
I'm comfortable putting them at kind of the bottom of A, and the reason I say that is because yes, the fact that they have the most breadth of spells, I think is cool and makes them feel, like the wizard you would expect them to be. The most efficient with spell slots. And yet I just think there's so much more meat on that spellbook bone, and that spellbook doesn't make any sense the way it works. And I can't get over my annoyance that the smartest creatures in the universe can't remember a spell that they knew yesterday.
Sure.
So I think A is fine, but
so my argument with that is that that's what's keeping it from S, not that that's what's hindering it from whatever. Because it's like if you think of everything else with the wizard, the thing is, yes, it can be generic. I totally understand that. I don't necessarily think that a level of, you know, a class being generic is necessarily would keep it from being a higher or lesser tier when we're still dealing with the idea of like, well, if you're playing it, are you going to feel like a wizard? Is everything sort of going to support that? There are things that are so glaringly like, I mean, it's a thing about the paladin where it's just like, what? It makes zero fucking sense that you could be a paladin and not have an oath for 3 levels. It doesn't make any fucking sense at all, right?
That doesn't make any sense, and it's very bothersome.
Yeah.
Yet, is the player going to give a shit about that?
Probably not.
Probably not.
So that's the same thing where it's like with the wizard, yes, it doesn't make, it makes zero fucking sense that literally the most intelligent creature in your realm, which should be your high level wizard or whatever.
Yeah. You know, barring like sphinxes.
Yeah, which whatever. Yeah.
The smartest humanoid.
Yes. It's like, you know, I mean, barring that, which is dumb and it should be different. Like, and hopefully they're going to change that with 1D&D with how spells are stored and remembered and all these different things selected, blah, 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 blah. I think that's what keeps it from S. I don't think that that's should be the thing where we're like, all right, well, should it be B? Should it be low A? Whatever.
Yeah.
I just think if we look at, I don't know, if we look at everything else right now that we have, for me, it makes way more sense that the wizard, you would get more out of the wizard in general than you would get out of the paladin, right? So I think that separates that, but I don't think that you're going to get as much out of the wizard that you would if you wanted to play a druid.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
I think the wizard is just above the paladin.
I think that, yeah, I'm fine with that.
B plus situation.
But I also think the paladin's really strong too, like in this
really
sense.
Strong. I mean,
there's just things that keep it out of the A tier, which it's the same thing of keeping, you know, it's this thing. I've got 3 classes in mind that I want to put A, and I don't. The other 2 I think are more evocative than the wizard are.
The other thing that I will say about wizard having played one for, you know, in a campaign is it becomes very frustrating. It was very frustrating to me that they get so many spell preparations.
Yeah.
And way more than spell slots, and in a way that lets them take more niche spells, which is great. But like the lack of ritual spells, and the disparity between, like, at one point, I mean, I'd have to look at the numbers, but it felt like I might have, like, okay, I can pick 20 spells and I'm probably going to cast 4 of these.
Sure.
You know, and some way for them to do more with rituals, there was just always something that was making me feel like not fully satisfied when I was playing them. But yeah, I'm okay with low A for now.
We got a couple things in the chat real quick.
Yeah.
So Jazzman says, Wizard is only A for me because they have access to the best spells, which sort of supports our original thoughts about Druid and Bard and all these things. Like because spells and like the spell list in general in D&D is just so, which is, I brought this up in the Warlock episode, like the spell slot, like feature of spell casting and everything is so intertwined with 5th edition and just in D&D in general that really all it takes for a class to be great is just give them really cool, interesting spells.
Yeah.
And because the wizard can do essentially all of them with, you know, very few exceptions, they're automatically like going to be this higher tier class because like no matter what you want your wizard to be, you can just sort of like have access to that based on your, you know, whether or not, and they go on to say everything else about the class I find tedious. I totally respect that, which is why I tell people as a dungeon master when they're trying to get into D&D and they're like, well, I love Gandalf or whatever the fuck. I usually recommend them, and Mika said this later. Yeah, I was going to say I usually rather play a sorcerer or druid. I usually recommend just playing sorcerer, which, spoilers when we get to it, I know it's further down the line, that is one of my other A tier classes, and it's better than the wizard specifically because it's just easier to play, it's less tedious, it's more streamlined, like all this different stuff.
Charisma is a more fun stat to have than intelligence.
Exactly. And so, but my other argument with wizard is I kind of, you know, as much as I appreciate a class being great for new players, I also love and respect the idea that, hey, you know, and they actually just kind of did this in World of Warcraft with the new expansion coming up. They released a new class. It's called the Evoker. Only a specific race can play it. You have to be a dragon born essentially or whatever. And it's an advanced class. And they give you a disclaimer when you pick the class at the beginning. It's also called a hero class. So you have to have played the game up to a certain point to be able to unlock this class. And then even then, the game goes, hey, this is a class that's a bit more complicated than, you know, the other classes. You know, it literally says like, are you sure you want to play this class?
Yeah.
Like it's kind of, you know, you have to go out of your way to like, you know, be better at it. So I kind of don't mind that philosophy if they were upfront and were like, you know, in the front page of the Wizard, it just says, hey, this class has a lot more going on than other classes. You know, just a little warning, like it's for you to feel satisfied playing this, you're going to have to be more involved than your buddy who's playing the fucking barbarian. You know what I mean?
I will also say though that I don't know that I find Wizard that much more complicated to play than other full spellcasters.
It's not that much more. However, when
it's a little more.
It's a little more. However, when it adds up with all the extra other stuff that you're doing,
yeah.
When a bunch of the other, well, I'm just going to specifically compare it to the sorcerer. When the sorcerer and then like martial classes in general, you can turn your fucking brain off. Kind of, not much with the sorcerer, but with martial classes, you can just turn your brain off.
Yeah.
And
That's
then
the
like, and
inherent
then
difference,
yeah, that's the inherent difference. So like all that kind of stuff. So I just, if there was a disclaimer on the class, like I feel like everyone would be like, well, they said it.
Yeah.
So like, you know, whatever.
Yeah, the other things we talked about briefly, and then we'll move on, is
the mechanic about collecting spells and adding them to your spell book is just kind of useless.
It's useless. It's very cool,
You
but
get
like
free. It'd be interesting. I don't think it would work, but it'd be interesting if wizards didn't get any free new spells when they leveled.
that'd be cool.
Because the thing is like with every level you get 2 new spells. You just pick your favorite 2, and then you're like, I don't need any other ones.
Mm-hmm.
So almost every time in campaign when I was like, oh, there's more spells in the store, I'd just be like, I'm never going to prepare those. If they're not rituals, I don't want them.
Yeah.
It's pointless.
Yeah.
So that sucked for me. And the other thing, which is a difficult thing to solve, is that if you play a barbarian with high strength and you're like, yo, I bound across these 2 buildings.
Yeah.
The DM's like roll, and then you roll and you're like, yeah, you did it.
Yep.
Or same thing with Dex doing, you know, backflips and being stealthy and whatever. Charisma, even if I fumble my words, even if I'm kind of an idiot, you know, the DM can still be like, yeah, you know, he was a little bit confused for a minute and then sort of just found you persuasive.
Yeah,
And
you know
couldn't
what?
help
He
but-
just
couldn't
there's
help
that
but feel-
twinkle in
yeah.
your eye. Yeah.
Yeah, and yet with the wizard, you've invested all of this sort of, you know, a lot of your power bank, a lot of your resources into having an eye intelligence. And when the DM gives you a puzzle to solve, most DMs aren't going to be like, roll intelligence to see if you solve the puzzle.
You have to solve the fucking puzzle yourself. Yeah.
So that's the other thing is like I'm a smart person, but I'm not a big like riddle person.
Sure.
Right. And so if I'm in a group and I'm playing the wizard and we get to the temple, there's a gargoyle
says,
opens up
whatever,
and says, like, you know, riddle me this. They're gonna
like,
be looking at me like, you're the smart one, figure out the riddle, and I'm gonna be like, yo, I'm sorry guys, I don't know how to do it. And unless the DM lets you make a riddle check,
right?
So all of these things, we'll leave it at A. I would put wizard at B.
Okay.
I think there's enough things that make it unsatisfying that
I would put them at B,
but we can leave them at A for now.
I think once we get through the other B classes,
We'll take a look.
And we'll go, all right, does it belong with these?
Yeah.
Sure.
Okay.
Rogue is next.
Rogue, what do you think?
I think
people like playing rogues.
I think when you play a rogue, you're almost always happy.
I think people like playing rogues. I think
rogues are a weird thing for the game in that they're the only class that, not the only, the rogue and some rangers really benefit from going solo on things.
Yeah.
Which is kind of weird. Not weird thematically, but sort of weird for like play style.
It's weird for the play style.
In general, parties don't split up, except for when the rogue or the ranger do a scouting mission.
Yeah.
But I think that's also the reason people love playing them, is they get to go off and do that thing.
Yep.
So I think, where do we have rogue
before?
I think we had rogue at A.
Yeah, I think they should be A still.
I think they should also be A.
Yeah. And I'm definitely putting them above wizard.
They're above wizard for sure. Barbarian. So here's the thing.
Yeah.
We had barbarian at A before.
Yeah.
I wouldn't mind this being moved down to B, higher B, for a couple of reasons. Number one, I just think that, and you know, I'm not saying that they're generic. I'm saying that the simplicity of the class does not really allow you to, and that it's so difficult because it's like, you know, without talking about the subclasses, a lot of the subclasses don't make any fucking sense to me. Like I don't understand how this could be a barbarian subclass. This should just be a class, I guess. You know what I mean? Like a lot of them are way too niche to the point where I'm like, it feels like you're just reaching on this. But the barbarian in general feels a lot. I mean, it's real. If you're playing a barbarian and you want to play barbarian, you're gonna be happy for sure.
Unless you play a zealot and realize.
Unless you play a zealot.
Berserker, I mean.
Yeah. A Zerker, and it sucks. Yeah. I just kind of think that I feel like the barbarian just should exist more as a subclass in and of itself, rather than being expanded on as a real class, which is where I think in terms of the fighter as well, that kind of falls flat, unfortunately. But I mean, it's still great. I think it's better than I think you're going to be more happy. I mean, I think you're going to be a happier person than the paladin. I don't know. Do I think that the rogue player is going to be having more fun than you? Yeah, because I feel like the only times you're really going to be having fun are in combat. Yeah. And if you're not in combat all the time, like unless you're like an extremely creative and team player RP person like Travis Willingham, I don't think you are. And here's an example. Not to say that she didn't have fun. I'm sure she had a great time outside of combat, and she was barely in the campaign anyways. Ashley Johnson didn't do fucking anything as a barbarian.
Yeah, she wasn't fucking Bo. She just like
that was it. Quiet, and it was like, yeah, I guess that's cool. Right.
But strength is the worst ability score not named intelligence.
Yeah.
Yeah, I agree. I also think barbarians are going to be very fun at low level play.
Yo, yeah.
If you're playing like a level 8 barbarian, boy, is that a choice.
Yep.
It's sort of, and that is a problem, right? When you feel like you have to multi-class to keep enjoying new features. Like brutal critical, I think, is just so boring and is not good.
Yeah.
There could be whole sessions, there could be multiple sessions where you never roll a crit.
And you don't do anything.
And you don't get anything out of that's like 2 or 3 of their features is enhanced critical.
And their best feature involves things happening to them. You do not have agency with your best feature. Yeah, you use it, and then if nothing happens to you, it's irrelevant.
I think the coolest thing about Barbarian is it enables styles of play that the other classes really can't do very well.
Yeah.
There are other classes that can tank, no question.
Yeah.
But the Barbarian, and that's why I like the Ancestral Guardian the best, even though the Bear Totem is kind of the de facto favorite.
Ancestral Guardian is, and that also makes sense.
Yeah, it does make sense.
Yeah.
And the Ancestral Guardian is one of the few.
There's not that many abilities in the game that let you force choices onto the enemy.
Yeah,
in terms of who they attack. And the Ancestral Guardian Barbarian is the quintessential tank. A lot of people play Barbarian. I think a lot of people will play like a Bear Totem Barbarian and say, I'm going to be the tank, and are going to be fucking disappointed when the enemy never attacks them.
I literally was about to say, again, going along with the agency thing, your primary feature, even as a Bear Totem, you don't do, like, the enemy can just fucking ignore you.
Yeah.
Like, and there's nothing you can do about
when
that.
You're playing a Barbarian, you either have to make sure that you are one of the most dangerous people on the battlefield.
Yep.
Which is probably likely at low level.
Sure.
Or that you are forcing them to attack you through other means.
Right.
But yeah, that's the thing is if you're playing like a level 8 or 10 Barbarian, there's no way you're the most powerful person.
No, if you have a spellcaster in a level 8 or 10 party and you're Barbarian, and you're up against creatures that are of CR, multiple CR 4s or 5s, or one CR 12 creature or something, they're going to have an intelligence level that's, amicable. And they're going to go, oh shit, that wizard just tried to do something that literally would have completely altered my reality. Yeah. I have to fucking stomp the shit out of that. This barbarian's just fuck off. I don't give a fuck.
Like, highly recommend if you have a level 3 one-shot playing a barbarian.
Oh, it's the best.
Probably.
Yeah.
I'm going to put them at B tier. I'm going to put them under the
paladin.
I respect that.
I think in general, people will have more fun playing the paladin over a campaign.
Oh, over a campaign? Sure. Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm not sure this list applies at all for a one-shot because, like, a lot of these things are, even the monk, I think is going to be really fun to play for one session. I think
everything will be really fun to play for one
exactly.
session.
I think everything will be really fun to play one session.
So yeah. Okay.
Warlock is next.
S tier, baby.
Easy S tier.
Easy S tier.
Even the things that a lot of people don't like about the Warlock, I don't have a problem with.
Sure.
I think the most awkward thing about the Warlock is is just that weird thing where like the warlock always wants to take a short rest, and other people are like, "Do we have to?"
Yeah.
And if you had a warlock in your party and they want to take a short rest, dude, just fucking let them.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Just be like, "Hey, yeah, okay, short rest happens. Let's move on."
Yeah, warlock super fun.
Lots of different ways to build a warlock.
Yep.
There are some that are there's some real balance problems with the warlock.
Yeah.
In terms of subclasses, and the fact that they're kind of that the hexblade as a level 1 dip for like every paladin, every sort, like that's a bit of a problem.
But that has really nothing to do with what we're talking about. So
I would probably put them. Do you think they're higher or lower than druid?
I think they're honestly, I like both of them pretty much equally, to be honest with you. I think that for me personally, I would probably put them under druid only because I do have an inherent problem with them ascribing to the spell slot function in the game. But are normal people, are like your average player going to have a problem with that? Probably not at
like
all. So that's my own niche thing.
Perfect.
Yeah, and so that for me personally, ignoring that, I don't see really much of a difference between the two of them. I think in S tier, it's sort of that flavor of, I don't know if you've heard this before, you know, this is, you know, if you are attracted to people in general, there's a level of hotness of people in general where it's like, you stop being hotter than someone else. You just like are really hot. And then like that is a very, like, that's a distinct, like you are hot. And then this other person who is like, you're not hotter or not, or they're not hotter than you. They're just both small. Yeah, you're just like an ethereal being. Yeah. So I think that's kind of where S tier stands. It's like, yeah, they both have their niches and like their ups and downs, but like they're just this beautiful thing. Yeah. So
okay. So cleric is next.
I think cleric B right in the pocket between or honestly behind I think behind barbarian. I think that you're gonna have more fun playing a cleric specifically than a fighter or a monk, specifically because you have a deity. And I think that classes with deities or with patrons or whatever inherently are more interesting, and you'll have more fun playing them than classes without
in the
them.
long run. I do agree with that. Yeah, I played a cleric in a one shot and I was very bored. Like even when I
understand that.
Even when I was like designing it and I'm looking at this cleric spell list, which I never really looked at, I'm like, this spell list is so fucking boring. There's nothing on here. Like basically every cleric takes spiritual weapon and ancestral
spirit, I think. Ancestral spirit?
Spirit guardians?
Spirit guardians.
Everything, they take spirit weapon and spirit guardians. And that's what you have to do because that's the only thing that you can do that's any good.
Yeah.
And spirit guardians is a dope spell.
Spirit guardians is great, like really good.
They're so boring.
Yeah. No, I totally understand that. I just don't think, I feel like we can't put them. I mean, the other thing we could do is put them high C, which I'd be fine with. I just think they're better than the fighter and the monk. You know what I mean? I just don't think that.
Yeah.
You know.
You're probably right. I think my heart wants to put them under fighter, but I probably shouldn't. So I'll leave them where they are right now.
I just my whole thing, like I said before, you're usually gonna have more fun just because like you have more to draw from as a character, all this different stuff.
And the cleric will have more to do out of combat.
Out of combat. If you're a fighter out of combat, good luck fucking finding a reason to do anything.
Ranger. Ranger, I think,
remains in C tier.
Yeah.
I do think that they're better than the monk.
I think they're better than the monk.
They're better than the fighter too.
I think there are things about the Ranger you're just gonna like more, even though technically maybe the fighter could do them better, hypothetically.
I think if you want to play a druid and just have a way worse experience. The Ranger.
Yeah, man.
If you really want to play, if you can't decide between the druid or the fighter, and you want to have a worse time than either, you know what?
I gotta put them under fighter because I think you're gonna have more fun
playing a fighter than a.
Well, here's the thing, though.
No,
well,
you're right.
The thing is that there are things about the Ranger that, like, even though they're not going to be that fun or not that fun, but like they're not going to be that good to use. When you use them, it's going to be cool for you.
You're right.
And like you're going to also have more things to do outside of combat than the fighter. Fighter has nothing to fucking do outside of combat, man. And even in combat, it's not even that interesting.
Yeah.
Whereas the barbarian, at the very least, when you're in combat, you feel like a fucking god. You know what I mean? For a little while.
You know what's interesting too, though, is when we look at this: paladin, barbarian, cleric, not so much, but sometimes ranger and fighter.
They all are going to suffer so hard compared to the spellcasters if spells don't change.
Yeah,
Through the massive nerf of Sharpshooter and Great Weapon Master.
it's also true. Yeah,
Because those are the feats. I'm glad that those got nerfed because they became the feats that you have to take if you want to be effective, if you want to keep up. But the fact that those are going away make the fighter so much worse. Because now all of a sudden those Polearm Master, Great Weapon Master, Sentinel builds that we were talking about, they're like whatever now. And Ranger, same thing. Like they really, almost every Ranger probably takes Sharpshooter.
Yeah.
And now, probably not.
Yeah.
Artificer is next. Man, this one's weird.
Artificer's very weird. Very weird.
It's so flavorful, except when it isn't.
Yep.
I almost... Part of me just wants to set them on fire because the Alchemist is so stupid that it's even an Artificer at all.
Yeah.
But I think that you will have a lot of fun describing the way that your spells happen as an Artificer. I think that you will maintain doing it longer than you would describing how you attack with a monk.
Yeah.
I think there's a lot of different ways to build Artificers. The fact that most tools have no rules text is a huge problem.
Yep. Which I think that they're going to be hopefully fixing that. We'll see, but hopefully they will. We had them at A last time.
We had them at A. I think they probably should be B tier.
I would agree with you.
And
I do not think they should be
I
A.
think my gut tells me they should be about here.
Okay, more so than Barbarian. I agree with that, especially because, again, this is another thing that we didn't really talk about this like throughout our time spending time with these classes, but you're going to have way more to do outside of combat as an Artificer usually.
God.
Hannah loves it. Hannah fucking loves playing that class. Yeah.
She loves it. The Artificer with a little extra effort from Wizards, not from your DM.
Yeah, yeah.
To make tools do things and to make crafting make any sense for an adventurer.
Yeah.
The fact that crafting rules is like take 6 months and spend 1,000 gold pieces.
So ridiculous.
To make a table.
Yeah, it's ridiculous.
Like adventurers cannot do that. So what you're telling me is that Artificers are not adventurers, then why are they a playable class? So in a way I want to put them higher because they're so cool, and yet everything I just said is so egregiously bad. Can they really be this high?
I think they can be in B tier.
Yeah.
I don't mind putting them at the same level as Barbarian or whatever, just because like there's a lot of stuff. I think that they're good right in the middle.
Also, dude, if you pick like an armorer, you're gonna have so much fucking fun.
Oh yeah, yeah, true. But kind of no matter what you do as a Barbarian, you're probably gonna have fun. Like, let's be honest, the type of player that picks the Barbarian class is gonna have fun.
Yeah, until they realize, like the monk, that they're portraying themselves as this badass on the battlefield, and then it turns out they're actually bad at combat.
Which is true. I mean, it's you do kind of have to go out. I mean, that's kind of how it was with Grog for a while, in the middle of the game, until Matt started giving him like specific encounters where like he can shine.
When your whole character concept, when the flavor of your class is being a badass at combat, if you're not going to have a good time.
True.
You know, if you're a druid and you feel like, oh, I wasn't that effective in combat, that's not the basis of your class, is being good at killing things.
Okay. I'm going to put him back where I originally thought.
Okay.
There's a lot of problems with the Artificer.
There is.
There's a lot of problems with the Artificer.
It's still, you're still going to have fun, but it could be so much better, and that's where our problems lie.
Yeah.
And by the way, it's not even in the player's handbook, and I think that kind of makes sense. I find it weird.
Well, when they redrop 1D&D in 2024, it'll be in there, and at least I can't imagine. I can't imagine why it wouldn't.
Well, if it was going to be, it should be in the player's handbook, though.
It should. Yeah, you're right.
I mean, they'll say you can use Eberron or you can use Tasha's. That's what they'll say.
I think they'll bake it in. We'll see. I think they will, but we'll see.
We'll see. Okay. The Bard. Infamously F tier.
Yeah, it's not moving at all.
It's not that it's bad, it's just that it's not a Bard.
It's not a Bard. The Bard class is not a Bard. If you want to really feel like a Bard and have your mechanics match what that feeling is, the class doesn't exist in the game.
Yeah.
It doesn't. It doesn't exist in the game. It doesn't exist in the playtest 1D&D right now with the rewrites on them as an expert class. they mechanically made things better and like a little bit more obvious and less, you know, they streamlined some stuff, and they made Songs of Restorations good and better. But they didn't like, I mean, until like we said before, until they go out of their way to actually make this like to write spells that are, you know, artistically inclined and are removed from other spellcasting classes, then this is not a bard. Like it's not a bard at all.
The sorcerer.
Sorcerer is the other A tier class for me.
I agree.
Yeah, the third A tier class.
I'm going to put them between rogue and wizard. I think they're going to be more fun than wizard for most people.
I agree.
The problem with sorcerer is they're really restricted in how many spells they get to know.
That is true. However, I would say that is supplemented by the pseudo deity that they have, which is themselves. You have an inherent sort of thing built into your class that you're a Naruto, where like you have a power inside you that allows you to do something, and it's just like, you know. And then the flexibility of your meta magic is just like it's incredible. Yeah. And quick note, other dungeon masters watching this right now, please do not let, and this might sound like something that's not a good idea, I promise you it is. If you have a sorcerer in your group and you have other spellcasters or what have you in the group, do not let your other casters successfully do things with their spells that mechanically only the sorcerer should be able to do. It's going to make your sorcerer look like a fucking idiot, and then like you're going to be breaking all these rules for really, you know, they should have played a sorcerer. You know what I mean? Like,
you'll feel bad.
It's not gonna. It's gonna feel good for a second, and then afterwards you're gonna be like, well, fuck, I have to do this like every time now, and it's gonna suck. So.
It's gonna suck.
Yeah, I think, and to clarify, I like that. Like
they have a limited spell selection. Mm-hmm. They don't get to know that many total spells, so they have to really make good choices. But again, like it's part of what differentiates the different kinds of casters. And they've kind of, I think, changed that with their design philosophy. It'll be interesting to see in the player's handbook when they talk about mages, if the whatever subclass they decide to show gets all of the additional spells prepared, like Aberrant Mind and Clockwork Soul from Tasha's. I expect that the design philosophy will continue forward. And if it does, that will change the main thing that hampers them both in power and I think in fun. So I hope to see that. I think all sorcerer subclasses should get, along with a lot of these other classes, frankly, should get extra prepared spells based on their
that makes total sense.
I think that's very cool.
Bonus Blood Hunter, pop that motherfucking C tier. It's you're gonna feel like a Blood Hunter if that's what you want to play. You want to play this Witcher style character. It's very fun. It's Matt Mercer's class. Yeah. And it's, you know, featured in D&D Beyond. Because of their partnership with them. God damn, it is, that class is hard to like mechanically feel justified damaging yourself for other things that you really don't get that much of a bonus on.
There's a million choices. It's very complicated. It's very complicated, and there's not huge power rewards.
Yeah.
I mean, I played a Blood Hunter recently in a one shot, and she was very effective, but you know, it's also one of those things where like when you do a one shot, you get to kind of like optimize for that level.
Yeah.
You know, and I mean, a lot of people watched Molly Mock die because, you know, choices are hard.
Choices are hard, huh? Yeah.
You know, when you deal yourself half your you know, max HP, then you're
probably gonna die. Yeah. Such is life.
I think
with the new 2-weapon fighting rules, it'll be easier to play that like dervish character with other classes as well.
I think the Blood Hunter is cool. The Blood Hunter also suffers
from a lot of the same things that the Ranger suffers from, where it's a lot of like creature and terrain and things specific, where you're like hunting something down, and like how often is it going to come up? Hopefully a lot, right? I mean,
I would argue the like, Blood Hunter stuff will probably come up more than the Ranger stuff, specifically just based on like, you know, your average campaign and what you're going to be dealing with. So that's a little bit more reliable, but again, like that, it's just, you know, it kind of feels bad, you know, when you're not when you're not doing that. So
yeah, they're also kind of strange. Where like one thing that's interesting, and I know we're up on time, but an interesting thing is with Blood Hunter, you get to pick whether your spellcasting ability is intelligence or wisdom.
Yeah, that's great. I think that's cool.
Yeah, I think it's interesting, and I wonder if I know that Blood Hunter remains not an official class, right. But a lot of people have speculated about. I know a lot of people play intelligence warlocks.
Yeah, I think I don't understand why that couldn't.
It's an interesting idea to be able to play with your spellcasting ability when you pick a class.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah, very interesting. All right, y'all. Well, that does it for our final Dungeons & Dragons 5th edition class tier list. Running it back down just from top to bottom, we've got Druid and Warlock at S tier, the two very best classes. If you want to play a class and feel like the class that you're playing from fucking start to finish, however long you're playing them, these two are the classes to go with. Right below them, we've got Rogue, Sorcerer, and Wizard. If you notice a pattern here, yes, 4 out of the 5 of the best classes, in our opinion, in the game are spellcasters. So, you know, if that, you know, gives you any indication of the rest of this fucking list, you know, buckle up. Right after that, we've got Paladin, Artificer, Barbarian, and Cleric. These are all fine. Like, you know, you're gonna have fun playing them. You know, there are some things that are lackluster about them, but you know, they're not insane, but they're not bad, not at all.
Remind your players, if they say I want to play a cleric, that they can play a cleric that isn't a life cleric.
That's so true.
They do exist.
They do exist.
And they're probably, I mean, life cleric is one of the better ones, I'd say, but there are other choices that are probably more interesting, at least.
It's very true.
I just want to see someone play a forge cleric. I think that's rad.
Forge clerics are really cool.
The mechanics are not great.
No, but you know, it's a cool idea.
You can spice it up.
Yeah, you got it.
That's got to be part of the fun, is being the DM, is being like, your character's not as good as the other ones. Here's a cool toy for you.
Yeah, that is the fun part about, at least what I like to do when people make their characters. I'm like, all right, I'm looking at this sheet and I'm like, you get to have this. Like, have fun with this, you know?
Pretty cool.
Right below that in C tier, we've got the Ranger, the Blood Hunter, the Fighter, and the Monk. Not too much to say about these classes. They could stand to be better, but there's nothing more fucking shitty than a Bard in 5th edition D&D. Man, the Bard's strong. Man, we all love Sam Riegel. Scanlan's cool. I've watched Vox Machina. This class is fucking not what it says it is, man. It just isn't.
Quick shout out to, not to someone that I know personally, but someone that I think does interesting work. There's a guy named Taryn Pounds who goes by Indestructiboy on YouTube.
Oh, word.
He recently was in these conversation videos with Treant Monk of Treant Monk Temple, who these are people that I follow, D&D creators, check them out. But Taryn Pounds is a homebrew. His main thing is that he makes homebrew classes and subclasses.
Nice.
And he's got a homebrew class called the Dancer.
Fuck yeah.
And the Dancer, I think, is exactly what the Bard should be, which is basically a non-spellcaster. They don't have spell slots.
Sure.
Basically a non-spellcaster utility character. The thing oozes with flavor. It's super cool. If I was to make a Bard from the ground up, I'd be looking at that sort of model for inspiration.
Hell yeah.
Very cool. And he's got a bunch of classes out there to check out if you're interested.
I love that. Good stuff. Well, that about does it for this episode of the Little Dicey Podcast. Thank you guys for joining us live. If you're catching this on YouTube, make sure you, like I said before, write a comment in the comment section below. Let us know your feelings about these classes. We'd love to hear them. If you are not familiar with our content, with our Discord, definitely check us out. Michaela, I think in chat right now, is going to link that. We're going to have those links also in the description below on YouTube. We play Dungeons & Dragons live every Wednesday, 6 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. We are going to be on episode 37, I believe, of the Great Nelidian Crown next week, or this upcoming Wednesday. So we'd love to have you there. We do this podcast live every Saturday at noon Eastern Standard Time. Eventually, these are going to go up on audio as well. We're going to get that set up relatively soon. Hopefully, in the towards the month of November, that's going to happen. And if you guys have any suggestions about what you'd like to have us talk about next, we've got a couple things in the pipeline, specifically with subclasses and other things on the podcast. Let us know in our Discord. We've got a suggestions sort of thread that you can go there and ask about, and we're gonna put up a couple polls pretty soon, just about what you might want to see. So, shouts out to everybody here who showed up live. Extra, always good to see you. Oh, geez, I just hit a mic, so hopefully that didn't fuck up anybody else.
Yeah, Jazzman.
Jazzman, yeah, thank you.
And Chaotic and Writer, thanks for hanging out.
Yeah,
some interesting.
Veerds, I think, was here too earlier, so shouts out to Veerds.
Hell yeah.
Yeah, hopefully we'll see you guys this Wednesday if you're interested in watching us actually play D&D. I'm the Dungeon Master here at A Little Dicey. Matthew is my wonderful co-host and one of our lovely players. So, yeah, I think with all that being said, we'll see you next week.
See ya.
Peace the fuck out.
Oh.
Transition. Ah! Let's start like just.